Hey, welcome back to Gibby's World. If you're building a computer, at some point you're going to end up with something that looks a lot like a rat's nest. Well, I'm going to show you how to make that look beautiful today on Gibby's World of Tech. Okay, so as you're building your computer, it's very easy to lose track of what's going on the back side of the computer. On the front side, everything looks good. You know that you have a few things, odds and ends. I got to add the graphics card. I got to hook up a few things. But on the back side, there's a whole lot going on. And believe it or not, you can make or break your build by being reckless with your cable management. Now, as I've said before, to an extent, your cable management quality is really up to you. There are some do's and don'ts. Obviously, you don't want wires getting pinched. You really don't want to have a lot of wires crossing one another and going under one another that you may need to remove or move later. But you kind of have to feel your way through cable management. But you do need to know some tricks and a few techniques to help it be a lot more smooth. So in the AIO video, I showed how I ended up at this point. You can see that my main power wires, other than my graphics card wires, are secured, they're solid, and I can actually secure wires to these wires. And I'm probably going to have to. Although the Hyte has a tremendous amount of depth for building, it is pretty compact this way. Now, I deliberately chose a small form factor power supply, but there are still some power supplies that would end up somewhere in this range, and that would make cable management a little bit more challenging. Every case is different. Every motherboard and case combination is different and present their own challenges. So your particular components and types of fans and things will determine how difficult this will be. So I'm going to try to show you some tricks that will help make it easier for you and help you get a better looking end result. And in the event you do have to change a fan or make a change, it'll be a little bit easier for you. So back on the front side, I do still have some things I need to connect. I have some hubs, I have some other add-ins that I'm going to put in. I have a good bit of work to do, and that's going to result in even more wire. So I'm going to do a fast forward montage once I get through demonstrating some techniques, because I don't know how long this is going to take me to do the job right. Now, you're going to need some basic tools. If you've watched any of my other videos, I have mentioned some of the essential things that you'll need. But where cable management itself is concerned, one thing you need to understand is that the Velcro and the zip ties that maybe come with your motherboard and your power supply, that is not enough. So I have a selection. I have some nice Velcro that my power supply came with. I have a wad right here of little cut-off pieces that I've saved because they're useful. I have an entire bin of Velcro. I have various sizes of zip ties. These really small, skinny ones, I believe they're 3mm width. These are my favorite for the small cable management that we're doing today. For my main cable management, I like to use the bigger zip ties, but these little skinny guys, they are your best friend. They're cheap, they're pretty strong, and they're easy to hide, and they look a lot better. I really like them. I even have some colored ones, but I probably won't use any of these for this build. But there are times I've used them to help mark which fan wires are which, or which SATA cable is which, things like that. Now, the best tool that I can recommend to you is a pair of flush cutters. Now, these are Knipex, whichever way you want to say it. I believe it's actually Knipex. I love these, but they're not cheap. But I do a lot of this, so I needed a good pair, and so I went ahead and invested in a nice pair. You can actually pick a pair of these up for about $5 off Amazon, and they're going to do just fine for this. As long as you're just cutting zip ties, they're going to do just fine. They're a lifesaver. You do not want to have a zip tie and cut it with, say, a pair of scissors or side cutters and end up with a sharp edge. I don't know if you can see that necessarily. It might be a little tough to see it, but you all probably know what I'm talking about. That is a razor sharp point. It will open you up and you'll need stitches. I'm not kidding. The flush cutters, on the other hand, you can actually put it right up against the lock mechanism, clip it, and look, I could rub that on my face. It's not going to hurt me. They're worth the investment. Spend the $5, okay? You don't really need a screwdriver unless you still have something to mount. You could use some of the 3M Dual Lock, maybe for a few things like hubs or Velcro. Double sticky, I try to stay away from. It makes a mess. It makes things hard to move. And honestly, you can actually damage a hub when you pop it off because the double sticky can hold on so well that you damage the housing of your hubs and other accessories like that. So be careful of how you secure things, but also be creative. You know, use your imagination. You know, you can use zip ties. Zip ties are kind of like the new duct tape. You know, they are redneck like me. Duct tape and zip ties, I can build you anything. I mean, they're great. So use it, you know, with your imagination to achieve the result you want. So anyway, I don't want to linger too long on the things that you may need because I have covered it in other videos. You do want your area to be well lit. You want to have a drink on hand. You want to be in a comfortable chair. And you want to be prepared to spend some hours doing this. Don't rush your cable management. Like I said, if you're okay with it being sloppy, that's okay. I would never say, oh, that's terrible, unless you said, hey, Gibby, what do you think of my cable management? Well, then I'm going to tell you. Now, my cable management's not always perfect either. There are times I have to make some compromises. I'm not in a competition, but I always try to make it look as impressive as the front side because it is a part of the computer, and building your own computer is a form of artistic expression, and I like to approach it that way. It's just like having a custom car, you know, the old lowrider days and things. You know, everybody expressed themselves in a different way. Computers are no different. So however you express your creativity, go for it. And so with that, I'm going to reposition the camera. And before I do that, I do want to mention I have a contest going in case you didn't notice. I have some exclusive, one-of-a-kind, super special Gibby's World stickers. I got some stickers coming, and I want to give some away. So hidden somewhere in this video is going to be a URL. And if you find it, you go to that URL, and you're going to get further instructions on how to get your own Gibby's World sticker. They're really cool stickers. And there's not going to be a lot of them. I don't have 1,000 of them to give away. There's only a very limited few. So look for that URL and enjoy this video. I hope it helps you out a lot. Okay, so what I like to do when I start my cable management is I like to get the easy things out of the way first. Now in this case, that's going to be the front I/O panel connectors, and I had them tucked away underneath. Now on this motherboard, I have two USB 3.2 ports, or headers, I'm sorry. And so I'm going to have to see which one do I really like the way this cable lays with. And then I have my front panel connector, which is instead of a bunch of single plugs, it's all together, which is really nice. Then this is my USB-C connector, which is a really nice thing to have now. And then last is my HD audio. Now, you know, in the old days, a lot of computer cases had multiple ports for your 3.5 millimeter headphone connectors. I think that's pretty much gone away. Maybe some people still use that. I don't. On the Hyte Y60, there's the one plug, and it comes with a splitter for the microphone and the headphone part. I'm not going to use it. I'm not even going to hook this up. There's no reason for me to, and I very seldom hook it up. So I'm going to kind of fish it out of the way, and I'm just going to tuck it loosely in the basement area here. I don't really foresee needing to bundle it in any way. It's not going to be seen. The others, I have to make a decision on how I want to route these. So on the Y60, there is a little tunnel path right here. Let me see if I can point to it. It's right down here. And I can bring the wires out here and then up underneath here, right to my motherboard, and that would have everything bent at a 90-degree angle. That might be okay. It might not be okay. I'm going to find out right now, and I'm going to do that by starting to fish these through. And, you know, like I've said, I've not practiced any of this with this case. You know, I haven't, you know, tried it to see how it works and then look like a super genius. No, I'm doing it the first time right now, and I wanted to do it that way so that you guys can kind of see what you're going to be up against when you're building in this case, because they all present challenges. So I just put a little crook in that to help me. I can see this plug will fit, but it just keeps moving because the cable is kind of a very flexible material. And this is why I like to start with these cables, because I know that I need to hook them up. There's no getting around it. They need to be done, and I want to get them out of the way. So this one is definitely being a tough one. So I'm going to move on to a different one that I know I can get in there pretty easily, and I'll show you a little trick. Okay, so I think that's my front panel. It is. Okay, so I've got that one in. So now what I can do is, I can take one of my little zip ties, and since I got this wire through pretty easily, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zip tie the end of this wire. Hopefully it doesn't pull back through. I'm going to zip tie this. You could use tape if you really wanted to, if that's all you had. Tape just kind of, it likes to make a mess. So what I'm going to do is use that wire to hopefully fish this wire through. It's being a little tricky. There it is. Okay. I wouldn't try to bundle all of them up and do it that way, because, you know, the more wires you get together, the stiffer it gets, the harder it is to work with. Now, did you see what I did there? I'm going to show you again. So with these snips, there are times you have to remove them, and you can be near some really fine wires. So you wouldn't want to go sideways, okay? What you want to do is you take the very tip, you just place it. You don't dig into the wire. You place it over the zip tie and just give it a snip. Look at that. There's not a mark on that wire. All right. So that's why these are so handy. They're going to save you a lot of aggravation. I promise they are worth it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep fishing this wire through. And there's a pretty good chance I'm going to end up shoving some of this wire right back into the basement. That's normal. That's good. That means I had extra and, you know, I can put it where I want to. Now, this guy, let's take a look on the front side, on the motherboard. Where does this one go? So I can see it goes right here underneath my 24 pin. And some motherboards have 2 of these now. They're really getting to the USB-C standard quickly, and I really love it. Data transfer, just, it's so fast, it's unbelievable. It is nice to still have the USB 2.0 headers because those are great for communication for fan hubs and things like that. And I mean, come on, who uses USB 2.0 anymore? I really don't know anyone that does by choice. You know, if you have older hardware, obviously you use what you have to use. But with modern hardware, I think it's just going away. Okay, got that one through. Now, although there's not a grommet in this hole, they are rounded over, rolled over edges. It's really nice. It's a very nice feature to have on a case. You don't have to worry about getting your wires damaged. So, I know that this wire hooks in just underneath my 24 pin. So, right now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to route this in a sensible way. Like this, and I'm going to bring it in underneath my 24 pin, and I'm going to go ahead and connect it. Now, something that I want to make note of, you are going to be turning your case a lot. You're going to make a connection, you're going to look at it, you're going to turn it back the other way, you're going to look at it again, you may decide you don't like the way it looks, you want to reroute it. As I've said before, if you don't have a turntable like I have, by all means, get a towel. And you can set your system on a towel and slide it back and forth. Now, in my opinion, that really should be more of a 90-degree bend over or header. It shouldn't be getting messed with a whole lot. You can see I have my SATA data cables already plugged in. Those go to your 2.5-inch SSDs. If you're not familiar, that's what those guys are. I don't like this personally. I'm just the way it feels. It feels a little wonky, but I shouldn't be messing with it anymore. And you know, I'm looking on my motherboard again just to double check that I didn't overlook or forget that, oh, you know, there might be another header that is more suitable, but there's not. So I'm just going to have to be careful with it. Okay, so now you can see I've got that end right here, and it's going to come down, and eventually that's going to get secured behind these anchor points. Okay, so that's done. Now, I'm going to bring my 3.2. Remember, I had all this tucked in so that when I rotate it around, it doesn't, you know, get caught up on anything. Well, now it's kind of in the way. See, you can see how you quickly end up with a lot of craziness, and this is nothing. I mean, really, this is just a drop in the bucket. If you're using, say, all Corsair fans, for example, you're going to have a PWM and you're going to have an ARGB wire per fan. And they're kind of proprietary on the ARGB. So it's starting to get, you know, it's getting a little ridiculous, honestly, with all the different types of connections and how many wires you're having to deal with. So what I just did is I looked at my motherboard and I said, you know, I don't really want to bring this out underneath at a 90-degree angle. So what I'm doing right now is I'm fishing it through. I'm going to bring it through this grommet. And I'm going to rotate it around so that the key is up properly. And this is what I'm going for here. This is all going to be pretty well hidden by my graphics card. Okay, so now that's in place, and I can tuck that in like that. See, I don't really want to bring it through here. I have another use for this if I need it, and I may have to move these around some. So I don't want to mess with that right now. I'd rather use this one. Okay, so that's another wire down. Now here's the loose end of it. I'm going to tuck it right in this basement here. Now I'm being mindful of where it's at, and I'm not just shoving it down willy-nilly, because I'm going to end up zip tying that together. I might use Velcro. You know, it just depends on the situation. Sometimes a zip tie is just the best way to go. There's other times you really need to use a piece of Velcro. You just have to weigh those situations as they come along. And now our front panel wire, let's see, that goes it's time for new glasses. So I know which one it is. I remember now, but I would be completely crazy to make an assumption, because assuming is how you make a terrible mistake. So pull out the old manual, and I'm just going to look at it, and it's going to refresh my memory on which one of these headers exactly is for the front panel. And so there's the table of contents, JF1, JFP1, JFP2, front panel connectors. Page 24. Well, let's go over here and see what it says. So it shows your SATAs, and it shows the front panel connector. And you can see that you have JFP2, which is for your buzzer and speaker that no one uses anymore. And then you have your JFP1, which is in the bottom right, which is the one I knew it was, and that's where the front panel connector is. So this wire, as I said, it's all in one bundle instead of separate loose wires. It makes it tremendously easier to deal with this than having to fight with, you know, a whole bunch of little itty bitty wires. I'm going to turn this around so you can see. Now you got to be careful, guys. I can't stress enough. This looks exactly like a USB 2.0. It says front F panel on it, okay? People are making this mistake all over the place. I see it on Reddit forums and Reddit posts and on forums and on Facebook groups. I'm seeing the same thing over and over, guys. Pay attention to what that plug is for and which header you're connecting it to. If you connect that to a USB, you're going to have a bad time. Okay, so that's connected, and I really want that to tuck underneath there. It's kind of, see, it's having a collision with my power wire, my SATA power wire there. So I'm going to play with it and try to get it wrapped underneath just like that. There we go. Now, I'm going to use the SATA wire to kind of help keep that stabilized. Those things will pop right out. They're really a nuisance. They are. Okay, so now we just have the HD audio tucked in here, and you know I still got room. I can tuck some wires in there. The next thing that I want to kind of deal with is my excess wire from the front panel. I'm going to stuff that in the basement. When I'm stuffing wires into a cavern area like this, I just try to fish it in there and let it go where it naturally wants to go. Now I do have to be mindful that I have fans over here in the front area, but there's a tremendous amount of space, and if I lift this up, you can see up underneath here I can get access to these if I do need to do any cable management. So it's completely okay right now, and I'll be checking that again before I put the dust filter in place. I'll be making sure this is all good to go, but right now it's perfectly fine. So see, I'm already starting to eliminate a lot of things. You know, and as I get down to it, I'll end up with basically my fan wires. And I do have to keep in mind how I want to go about, you know, positioning different wires, and, you know, what am I most likely to have to deal with down the line. That can be kind of tricky to decide. You know, if you bury your fan wires 3 weeks from now, you may have a fan go bad, and now you're spending, I don't know, an hour and a half trying to cut zip ties and fish it out, and then of course you have to re-cable manage it. That's not fun. So taking a little bit of time right now is the best policy, and you know, just kind of thinking it through, thinking about how you want it to look. And you know, one other thing I will say is if you have one of these headlamps, I have one here, you know, they don't last very long on a charge. They're great to have. They put out a ton of light. You know, these are so nice to have. They really do help you see what you're doing. When you have black cables against a black or a dark colored chassis, it can start to make you go cross-eyed. So, you know, the more light you can get, the better. So these are for my two crazy SATA drives, and I need to connect them to a hub, and I want to keep them out separate. You know, right now I'm having to make some decisions. You know, I've got SATA data wire here. I've got another one here. I have SATA power right here. And it's all kind of coming out of two different areas. And it's starting to be a little bit of a hectic mess right now. So, you know, this is where you have to just be patient, slow yourself down a little bit, and pace yourself because you'll get overwhelmed. Although I wasn't able to use my really nice cable mod SATAs on the motherboard side, I am going to use them to connect these wires to the power supply. And unfortunately, that's going to add some bulk. So I'm going to try to leave these for last. I really don't want to mess with them right now. I got a feeling that there'll be plenty of space to stuff them in here later. They may be something I have to deal with down the line. So I'm going to move them and forget them for now. Okay, so now I'm going to do my SATAs, my data wires, and then I'm going to continue. Okay, so enough of that. So how do you make this all look really nice? Well, when you're running your fan wires, what I like to do, and you can do it one of two ways. You can either get your PWM wires all together and your ARGB wires all together, or you can separate them. So here I have, for these two fans, because they're daisy chained, I have a PWM and an ARGB. All right, and then this is for my AIO pump and screen. Okay, and that's for the hub. And this goes to my USB header. It says it right there. Guys, I can't tell you this enough, how many people have been frying this pump because they're not plugging it into the right header. So I'm going to get this out of the way. And I already know that my USB 2.0 headers are at the bottom. And so see how I'm routing this wire? I'm stuffing it right down that channel. I'm going to bring it up underneath. I'm feeding any slack I can feel, I'm feeding it through. I'm going to have to pull it back. That's totally on purpose. Because I want to see how this looks. How do I feel about the way this cable is naturally kind of routing itself? Okay. Now, remember, I mentioned Tessa tape and how I like to hide these wires and I don't like the way that looks. So this is no exception. I'm about to take care of that now. Now this video is going to be obviously fast forwarded. I'm going to do that in just a minute because I've got a lot of work to do and there's no sense in making you sit through some ridiculously long video, which I know you're not going to watch. But what I do want you to understand is the importance of getting these really important connections out of the way first. By doing that, you have less things in your way for you to deal with. I mean, I am going to make that look prettier. I'm just doing that right now, real quick, to emphasize my point. So with your fan wires, as I was saying, you know, I have an RGB here. This fan wire is coming from my exhaust fan, and it's going to my CPU fan header. Remember I mentioned this is going to eliminate that alarm situation. So this guy is going to just get cable managed up here somewhere with some zip ties. I'll sort that out. See, I can lay that down just like this. I can run that down in the corner. And I can run it across. But see, I don't have anything over here really to anchor to, you know, to keep that completely hidden. You know, well, that's okay. because you're not going to see that. So what I would probably do is I'd make me a little bundle of the extra wire, and I would actually route it, zip tie it here, okay, in a straight line, run it across, and then make a little bundle and tuck it down behind this SSD tray. See, I literally take it one thing at a time. That leaves me with these three. Okay, so with these three wires, there are anchor points up at the top. I don't know if you can see them, but there's three. So what I would do is I would run these right across the top here and bring them down. And then, if my hub is mounted here, for example, hopefully I'll be able to bring them straight down and make my connection. You know, and again, I know that these fans are way too fancy to be used on a case like this that hides a good bit of them. These infinity mirrors won't be seen. These side infinity mirrors won't be seen. And someone will say, well, it's a waste. Why'd you do that? Because I like them. And they're good fans. And so I wanted to do something different. And it's completely okay. I may change the fans at another time to something different. But for right now, these fans are what I wanted to use. And so my cable management will reflect that I know I may change these fans. So I don't want to bury these fan wires behind all this stuff. I want them to be out accessible, easy to get to, so that if I change these fans, I can just unscrew them, cut a few zip ties, and pull them out, or even undo a little Velcro. But it's going to take me some time to see how it lays the best in the case, what looks the best, how I'm happy with it, and then make a decision. And I can be indecisive about that. You'll find that you are as well. You'll make a decision, you'll anchor it, and then you'll rethink it, and then you'll undo it. Totally normal, totally okay. You know, do it how you like to do it. So with that, I am going to use the magic of editing to fast forward this process. You will still be able to see what I'm doing, but you won't have to hear my crazy voice, and you won't have to watch every little move that I make in real time. So I'm going to shorten down probably 3 hours of work into just about 10 minutes. So sit back, hang on, and enjoy the ride. Okay, and we are back to normal life speed. So, I don't know if you caught any of it, but I did run into some problems there while I was connecting hubs and doing different things. I had to keep playing around, fiddling around with how I wanted to mount my AIO header, my AIO hub. I'm tired. So I ran into a problem that I want to give you a word of caution about. If you're using the Asus Ryujin 2360 AIO, ARGB is a nightmare. Whoever invented it really wasn't thinking that far into the future. You know, there's no positive lock or connection that's made. Your plug just slips over the three little pins, and they're very wonky. They pull right out almost with hardly any touch. And depending on the motherboard or the plug or, you know, whoever made what, it can be snug or it can be very loose. I had a combination of both of those. As I was plugging in the main feed ARGB wire to the hub, the header inside the hub actually bent. I was able to bend it back straight very carefully. I don't know yet whether it's damaged. I'm not going to know that until I turn this thing on and I test it. Now, if it is, I'm going to have to go through the process of getting it replaced. So if you're using the same AIO, be very careful when you're plugging in the wire to the back of the hub. I had to unplug and replug it way too many times, to be fair. And I think that I just got it a little misaligned, and that plug does have a bit of a lock to it in the hub, and I mistook that feeling for needing to lock it when in reality I wasn't quite lined up. So just a little cautious word there. Now, as you can see, I have quite a bit of craziness going on here. This is actually better than I expected it to turn out because I don't have the cheat space down here on the left where a lot of cases have a large shroud and you can shove a lot of wires under. I didn't really have that luxury. You saw some of the wires I was able to tuck under here. And so I had to make good use of the side and the bottom over here. So you can see now why having a shorter power supply is a huge benefit. Now, I also hooked up an extra SATA power because I do have a couple of other things that are going into the case that may need that power. Also, in the future, I may add something that needs it. I'd rather go ahead and have that wire there. I also have an extra ARGB plug on my hub that I'm going to be using, so I left that laying loose. Now, on my graphics card power wires, my PCI wires, I just loop them down here for now until I get the graphics card in. I think I've got the wires about right, but it's impossible to know until I mount the card. Once I do, then I'll come back here, make any adjustments, and then I'll secure them a little bit. Now on the hubs, you can see that I was showing you how I could move this around. This is magnetic, and it sticks nicely. The Asus hub, I was having some problems getting any kind of adhesive to stick to this powder coat. I even used pure alcohol to clean it. It still didn't work. But if you noticed, I was able to use screws to secure it because smartly, they included threaded holes on the same spacing as an SSD. So I took advantage of that. Now my gripe would be that the holes are not centered on this bracket for an SSD. I don't know what the logic there was. I would have much preferred them to be centered because then I could have put the hub to the inside like this one is, and I would be able to see if I have a loose wire. I may very well have an ARGB fan wire that has come loose. I did my best to secure them with a little slack and anchor them, but it's really hard to say. You know, some of these are a little more snug than I ideally would like, but that's kind of what happens as you're starting to add more and more elements into your case. You start to have a cause and effect situation. So where I'm at right now, I feel pretty good about it. Like I said, I do have a few concerns, but they're not major. They'd be an irritation to fix if I have to. I'll deal with that. So what's next? Well, the next thing obviously is the graphics card. I could have gone ahead and put it in for this video, but I decided I want to do a separate video. I want to talk about the graphics card that I chose, the reason I chose it, and I want to show exactly how the vertical mount works out in this case. And I thought that would be a better standalone video. So it won't be long, but it will be helpful if you're using this case. Overall, I found that the cable management was, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fantastic, 1 being my worst nightmare, I would say the cable management is probably in the 7, 8 range. So, you know, certainly if you've never done it, you may find yourself overwhelmed, but take your time. You know, think about your, you know, likely access wires, keep those to the outside. Now, I did anchor a lot of things, as you saw, to other wires, but if I need to remove this hub, I can easily trace each zip tie that it's going to take me to get this hub out without having to remove all my zip ties. That's a very important thing to understand as you're cable tying. Make sure that you treat each component as an individual, even if you're anchoring it with other things. That way you can easily pull it out if you have to. So this wraps up the cable management portion of the build. I hope that this helps you. I hope that you learned something from it. I enjoyed it. I always enjoy a good challenge, and I'm really happy it's a great looking build. It's coming along nice. I've got more to come, and I've hinted at it. And if you look at the community tab, there's a picture of an item that's going to go in this case, but I'm going to show you how to do it step by step. I've given some hints. Also, like I said, there is going to be a hidden URL in this video. There's a contest giveaway for some stickers. Now, I know stickers aren't that big of a deal to some, but I love stickers. And the stickers I've got made are amazing looking. So if you'd like to get your hands on one, look for that hidden URL. Go check out that video, and it's going to tell you exactly what you need to do to get your own Gibby's World sticker. If you haven't subscribed, I encourage you to consider doing that. It helps out the channel, and it gets me closer to that goal so that I can bring you better and more content. Join us on Discord. There's so much help available. I am instantly available if you message me on Discord. If you're building in any case, if you're working on any computer, I can help you out. There's a few other people there that can help you out. We're trying to build a community of people who are going to give you good, straightforward answers without any sarcasm, without flaming you. You know the kind of hate that you get on some of the forums. That doesn't exist on our channel, on our server. So thank you very much for joining me. Also, hit that notification bell. I'm going to start doing shorts. I'm going to also be dropping videos more often, and you want to know when they come out. And last of all, share the channel. If you like it and you think a friend would like it, share it. It really does help us out. Content creators really struggle when they're starting out, and every little bit of help goes a long way. Thank you for joining me in Gibby's World of Tech. I'll see you on the next one.